Hey everybody, we're back and we're ready to make some pizza. So just a couple things before we start. So my family and I lived in Italy for a long time and 8 years in Naples alone for me, and that's why I have a deep passion for making pizza and coffee, but mostly pizza, and that's how I got interested in making bread. We're not going to do this stringent to the UNESCO documentation of what is and isn't a Neapolitan pizza, but the dough it meets those requirements. It's 60% hydration, as you saw if you watched the previous video. It's all pasta madre, which is sourdough, and it's 0 flour. So we're about ready to start. I do want to highlight a couple of things. I'm wearing a shirt that my daughter said I should talk about. So this is from Pizza al Metro near Sorrento. I don't remember the name of the actual town. Anyway, but here locally, there are a couple resources that I like to check in on. And one is a YouTube channel run by a guy who works in West Hollywood called Vito Jacopelli. And Kim and I have eaten at his place. Fico e Quenze is the place where Pizza al Metro is. But Vito Jacopelli, Maestro Vito Jacopelli, is an award-winning pizzaiolo. He's fabulous, and he has tons of tutorials online. And if you live anywhere near LA, you should go check out his restaurant too, because he's a fabulous, fabulous cook. So we are going to make a pizza per person tonight on my outdoor Blackstone gas-fired grill, and then if my oven heats up, I'm going to do one in that just to show you that you can do the same thing in your regular kitchen oven, but because it probably only goes to 550, there are some limitations. It's going to take longer, it's not going to be quite as good, but it'll still be very good. There are people who actually intentionally break the lock on their oven and they put it in self-clean mode so that the temperature will get way above 550. I wouldn't recommend that, mostly because it sounds like a fire hazard to me. But the oven that we're going to use outside gets to about, well, it would get to 1,000 degrees if I let it, but the stone on the bottom is going to be 750 or so degrees, and I checked that with this infrared thermometer. And the top will be about 850 or so. So somewhere in the middle, it's about 800 degrees, which is what we would hope for with a wood-fired oven. So the dough that we made yesterday is here. And again, if you didn't check out that video, please do. And I put some notes in there as well. So we're going to make kind of what I usually do is I make what I call the test pizza. So it's a pizza with no sauce, no cheese or anything. It's just going to have the dough itself and on the top there will be some olive oil and rosemary, which I picked from the backyard, and a little bit of salt. So I'll talk more about how to shape this dough, but don't worry too much about this. If you've made good dough, it should be pretty extensible. Actually, Sophia, would you come around behind me just for a sec? So I don't want a ton of flour under this when it goes into the oven, but hopefully what you can see is that you should be able to stretch this out pretty easily. So regardless of how you do it, you should be able to stretch it out so that it makes a nice 12 or 13-inch pizza. What I would not recommend doing is rolling it, because you're just going to push all of the gas out of the outside of this, which I've kind of intentionally tried to not deflate completely. And if you do that, it just won't rise once it gets into the oven. So the added difficulty of this pizza that I'm going to make right now is that it's really easy for it to bubble up in the center. So I'm going to take like a metal spatula with me, and I might decide to give it a pop in the middle. But Sophia's going to follow me out, and we're going to watch this cook. And when you bake something at 750 or 800 or 900 degrees, it really shouldn't take more than a minute or a minute and a half. I used to have the kids count to 90 seconds as we were making pizza to make sure that I didn't forget something. Oh, and I did have some salt. So I'm just going to put a little fleur de sel on this if I can find it. But I can't, so I'm just going to use the regular diamond crystal that I mixed in the dough. So just a little bit of that around. All right. So if you watched one of the previous videos where I talked about the tools that I have in the house, if you only have one thing, I would say get an aluminum peel. We're going to use this to take the pizza off, so actually we might as well just use this one this time. So I put a little flour on it, and then I let most of it fall off. And then you should be able to slide at least part of this under, and then I'm just kind of locking that on my hip, and then give it a little shake to make sure that it moves, and then we're going to carry it outside. We're building a wood-fired pizza oven this summer. That'll be nice, and when we do, I'm going to have less of a commute to get to the oven. So Sophia's going to watch. I'm just going to put this on, and I'm not going to try to shove it in exactly, but I'm more concerned about pulling it out carefully. So I let the edge stick, and then I just take that out. And again, if you watch Vito Jacopelli's website or his YouTube channel, he's a professional. You can get all sorts of tips. So this stone, like I said, is about 750 degrees. So what we're seeing now is that that's popping up, and I just don't want that so much because it'll burn. So I'm just gonna kind of let it flatten out a little bit. I don't mind a little burning. In fact, I hope to see a little burning, but I don't want just one part to be completely black. And then all of the oil would seep off the side of it. So you can see how it's bubbling up. And so this Blackstone Pizza Oven, it was really pretty inexpensive. I just happened to see it at Lowe's. I think I was the only person who wanted to buy it. And so I got it at a pretty good price. But I love the fact that the bottom rotates. So it's basically, if you look over here, you can see it's just like a rotisserie. It's got the flame shooting up the side, and I can really crank it up if I wanted. I'll probably leave it up a little higher now that we're going to start making more pizzas. But I haven't been counting. Have you been counting?
70?
Something like that. So the bottom's starting to get a little blistered, and that leopard spotting is exactly what we want. But we do want a little more color up on the top. So for me, the advantage of the aluminum peel, and you can see that it's hot, is that if I feel like the bottom is cooking too fast, I can take this and just lift it up into the air. But this is, it's coming along. So what I'm saying is, if I don't want the bottom to cook more, but I want the top to cook, I can just lift it up like that, and then boom, it continues to cook a little more, and I'll just let it spin because this isn't very good for rotating it. Just give that a little lift, and we're done. So needless to say, this pizza peel is now really hot. Actually, give that side just a tiny bit more too. So I can't take and put another pizza on it immediately because it'll stick like crazy. There we go. And that's our first pizza. So usually we let people snack on this, and then I start rolling them out a couple at a time.
He doesn't mean actually roll, because earlier we said no rolling pins.
No rolling. So we'll just cut that up and let people start on it. Sophia, would you come with me just for a sec? So typically we have a lot of people over. Now I need to set this down someplace where it's not going to burn people. We're going to take just a quick break, cut that. If we had a dozen people over or something, I would probably just stay here. I would let one person load the pizzas into the oven, have another person take them off. So basically, as soon as one comes out, I can have another one going in. And since it only takes me a couple minutes to prep one and a minute and a half to cook one, you can roll out a dozen of them in no time. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. So I just want to talk about what I do here in the house. These are the dough balls that you saw me put in here yesterday. So I didn't put any non-stick spray or anything in here. I didn't flour the bottom, and they're pretty easy to get up. And so I'll just put it into a little bowl of flour and then bring it over here. And I'm just going to cover this again. So one of the things that I said was that in working with sour, you have so much more flexibility. These dough balls would be fine for another 3 hours. In fact, they're just a little underproved for me. It's a little harder to work than I would expect. So I just make a ring around this, something like this, and then flatten it out with my fingers, trying to not mash the border so much, and then I give it a flip from time to time, still working on the inside. I think for most people the easiest thing to do is to take it and just use the back of your hand to gently stretch it. You can pull with the other hand if you want, like this, or you can use both hands together. Eventually, if you feel comfortable doing it, you can do what you'll see professionals do, which is to use your fingers to stretch this side and pull, and then they give it a little bit of a turn. They stretch, and they turn, and they stretch, and they turn, and then they actually go really fast. In the end, for me, what I find the easiest is to use my fingers to kind of push and turn at the same time. I can feel that it's getting just a little dry underneath, so I'm going to flip it and work on this side a little bit. And pretty soon, you're at a place right where we were before. And I've, left this again to be a little bit puffy on the outside so we get a nice rise. So one of the things that I think is really important is to just make sure that you've got a space where nobody puts their drinks and gets it wet. And I'm kind of laughing to myself because everybody knows that I will give them a very hard time if they get like liquid here, because it'll make this stick. And I really don't like the taste of a whole bunch of flour that would go into the pizza oven. So part of what I'm doing when I lift it up is to just kind of shake that off. Because burned, unhydrated flour is not good. So we will often have pesto for one of the pizzas, and if we've got a bunch of people over, they'll all share. So this one is kind of different. My wife makes the pesto around the house, and this is not basil pesto. This is actually arugula pesto with walnuts in it, and the walnuts are really chunky, so that's why it's a little bit hard to spread. But use whatever you want. I would just say, until you've got some experience doing it, don't use anything except crushed tomatoes for your tomatoes. I wouldn't put anything that has like a whole bunch of oil in it or anything, or garlic and oregano. So if I had the choice, I would of course use mozzarella di bufala, buffalo milk mozz, and I don't. So this is Trader Joe's ciliegine, which I've cut into little pieces because if I left them in balls, they wouldn't melt. So my son has requested a pesto pizza, so that's what we're going to do for him tonight. And you really don't need a lot. You've got such great flavor in this dough that you really want to taste everything. It shouldn't just be like a mountain of cheese and meat and stuff, but there we go, something like that. I always have a rag handy to wipe my hands off, and I have a towel in case I do somehow get something wet on here, or to dry my hands. But now I want you to see the peel that I normally use to load this. So same idea, I'll just put some flour on this, and I kind of rub it in just for a second, just to make sure that it's nice and slippery, but I still don't want a lot of flour on this either. So again, I'm going to just brace this on my leg because I don't have a little crutch over here to put it on, and then I'll slide that onto the peel, just like that. Give it a little shake just to make sure it's not sticky. If it is, you can usually just lift it and toss some flour, and that'll give it another shake. And now we're ready to move. So I did leave the other peel, the aluminum one, outside in case we need to lift this. But in it goes. There we go. Pesto pizza. Is that about 90 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Noah, dinner time.
Pizza's ready, buddy.
Okay, thank you.
Ready to?
Here's a little cross section of Sophia's pizza. She has just truffle paste and mozz, and you can see that it's nice and airy. So ideally this is crispy on the outside but nice and light and fluffy on the inside. And then the middle, you know, should be thin. You shouldn't be able to pick it up like a slice of New York style pizza and eat it with your hands. It's okay if you can and do, but ideally this is nice and soft in the middle. And there we go. Okay, so this is my wife's pizza, and this is one that we first had when we lived just north of Naples in a little town called Pozzuoli. And there was an area that was damaged by earthquakes and closed in the 80s, called Zona A, Zone A, and so that was what this pizza was named after, and that was the name of the restaurant. So this was their specialty. So it's mozz and prosciutto, and I'm going to cook it, and then I'm going to come back and put arugula and shaved pieces of Parmesan on the top. Okay, so this is the pizza cooked, and I should show you. So this was an air pocket that I hadn't seen when I was stretching the dough, so that's why it burned there. It's fine. It's not as pretty as we would like it. So this one gets the arugula, and then we're going to take some Parmigiano, and with a vegetable peeler, shave some little ribbons of parm on the top, which is super. Just a great pizza. So feel free to experiment. This is one of our favorites that we did not create, but we're always making different things. So if you had the truffle pizza, you know, we'll do sausage and onions and things that you would never find in Naples. But you know, a lot of things work on this. Just try not to overload it too much. Okay, here's my pizza. It's more or less a margherita with salame on it. So this is the first one that we've actually used tomato sauce on, which is not uncommon in my house. And it's got a good crust. I'm gonna try to see if we can see under this just a little bit. So it's speckled on the bottom, but it's certainly not burned, and all of that equals flavor. So really good. I'm gonna eat, and then we'll check in with the last pizza. Okay, so for our last pizza, I wanted to try using the regular house oven, which is terrible, by the way. So it just finally got to 550, and that's typically the max for a kitchen oven, as I said earlier. So I'm gonna put this on a piece of parchment paper. I'm going to assume that if you've never made pizza before in this way, you maybe don't have a pizza peel. So we're gonna make a ripieno. Woo! I hope we're gonna make a ripieno. So this is ricotta, and then we're going to add to that the rest of the mozzarella, and then a little tomato sauce. And I did exactly what I said you shouldn't do, which is not have all your ingredients ready. So I am missing some salami, and I am going to grab that really fast. So normally I would chop this up, but since we're rolling and I don't want to take forever, I'm just going to actually put this in here. So this is the way that I seem to remember them being made in Naples. It's been a long time, but it's really good. And this is one of the few that I think works nicely the next day. So these are our leftovers. This pizza will become our leftovers. So I typically put just a little bit of tomato sauce on the inside. If I had some basil, I'd throw that in too, but I use that up on my pizza. Okay, so then this one gets folded in half. You just kind of pinch the edges like this. They're still going to puff up, believe me. And then typically I take a nice sharp knife and just give it a couple of cuts, and then I put even a little more tomato sauce on the top. All right, something like that. So, again, assuming you don't have a peel in your house, you could use something like this. This is just a regular baking sheet. I'm actually going to fold this under because it's bigger than necessary. Okay, so I've never made pizza in this oven before. I've made pizza in the oven at our last house, but not this one. So the stone's already 550. I'm going to pop that in. Actually, I'm going to turn it, if I can, not burn myself, and center it under the broiler. And now I'm going to turn the broiler on low, and then we're going to check on it in about 2 minutes. Okay, so if I had this to do all over again, I would do it slightly differently. But this took about 3.5 minutes to cook, and you know, it's pretty good. The bottom is not quite as done as I'd like it, so maybe what I would do next time is raise the stone. The one thing that you didn't see is that I cheated. I pulled it out and stuck it on top of this baking sheet just to get it a little closer to the broiler. The parchment is going to burn, you know, if it stays in there too long, but at 3 minutes it was fine. So maybe what I would do is raise the stone a little closer, because I was about this far away from the flames in the broiler. So maybe get it up even closer. Turn the broiler on after the oven's at 550 to get the stone even hotter, because the broiler, you know, with the direct flame right on it will get even hotter. And I mean, that would work. You know, it wouldn't be as great as having a gas-fired dedicated pizza oven. Certainly not as good as having a wood-fired pizza oven, but really good. And the dough's still going to be nice. It's going to be a little chewier than, you know, cooking it in 90 seconds, but it's still going to be very good. So try it out. Let me know what you think, and happy baking.